A great Tibetan sage once said, "We shrink from suffering, but love its causes." That's from Shantideva. And what he's talking about is the fact that we are constantly running from suffering, but we end up often doing the very things that create suffering in our life. So my question for you today is, how are you taking part in what you say you don't want? How are you creating your own suffering? For me, this was a very powerful reflection of looking at my own life and looking at the ways that I was creating suffering for myself with my actions. Usually in the very things that I thought were going to bring me happiness, going after pleasure, going after recognition. It was in the chasing of these things that was creating so much suffering for myself. And so pausing in your life and reflecting on what are the ways in which you might be creating your own suffering. Looking at what are the sources of suffering in your life, what are the sources of depression, what are the sources of anxiety, what are the sources of craving, and how might we be feeding into these things. It's a very important reflection. Looking at something like digital addictions and how we feed into those behaviors by constantly checking in on social media, checking our email, and yet it drives us crazy, where we feel like our mind is hijacked by our devices. So taking time to reflect on this question of how am I contributing to what I say I don't want? It's a very deep question, and it takes some responsibility, taking responsibility for your actions, taking extreme ownership, as Jocko Willink says, extreme ownership of your own habits and behaviors and the consequences of them. This is actually what's meant by karma, is that everything you do has consequences. Every action, every intentional action has consequences. And looking at the behavior you have in your life and looking at the consequences of that behavior is very important. So just every once in a while, maybe once a week, once a month, at least once in your lifetime, asking yourself this question: how am I contributing to what I say I don't want? It takes self-awareness, it takes mindfulness, it takes the ability to see clearly. So I hope that you can find some time to reflect on this for yourself. And it takes humility also to recognize that we might not have all the answers. And part of this, this is also the hero's journey, is there's a step of renunciation, where we recognize that the way we're doing things might not be right, where we have to have this humility and say, the way I'm living my life might not be right. And so usually this reflection comes when we hit rock bottom, when we realize this is definitely not working. That's when these reflections come about. What am I doing to contribute to this? So, for me, when I've hit rock bottom, it's been some of the most powerful times in my life of cultivating change, because there's so much fire there. There's so much fuel to change, because you realize it's not working. So if you're at rock bottom right now, if you're experiencing some suffering, some depression, see if you can use that as fuel to really investigate in your life. How are you contributing to that? What behaviors or actions are leading to your own suffering? Very, very useful reflection to have. So that's it for today. I'll show you where I am. Beautiful spot out in Chiang Mai. Lovely everywhere. Hope you're all well. If you like this video, put down a comment below. Let me know you're watching. That's it. Bye, y'all.